Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to welcome you here this evening. My name is Brian Atwood. I used to be the dean here, and Dean Schwartz asked me if I would come here and welcome people on his behalf. He thought maybe I had some experience doing this, which is true. I'm really delighted to welcome the former Prime Minister of Somalia, Abdiweli Muhammad Ali, and he's sitting next to our good friend, former advisory board member Hussein Samatar, who is now, of course, as you know, an elected member of the Minneapolis School Board. He is in many ways such a symbol of a first generation American who has made it big, and his African Development Center is a co-sponsor of this event with the Humphrey School here tonight. I just want to say a couple of words. I have been, for the last 2 years, the chair of the Development Assistance Committee in Paris. And that committee, of course, is made up of all of the donor nations. There are 24 of them that participate in that. And among the many things that we worked on, one of our subsidiary bodies was called the International Dialogue. And the International Dialogue was made up of donors, but it was made up of fragile states, the fragile states who declared themselves to be fragile. None of these 17 states that declared themselves to be fragile had made a single one of the development goals of the Millennium Development Goals. They were still struggling with security, with justice, with weak institutions, and the like. I think of all of those fragile states, and one would include countries like Afghanistan and Timor-Leste and Liberia among them. None of them probably 2 years ago would have imagined that the country of Somalia could have come through its transition successfully and actually established a constitutional elected government. And that is exactly what has occurred. When you think about the challenges of transition, they're difficult enough because of the poverty that exists without having a security situation to deal with at the same time, without having a situation in the capital city of lawlessness, without having problems with food and problems of offshore piracy and various other challenges that Somalia has faced. One of the reasons that Somalia has succeeded is, of course, sitting here with us today, the transitional prime minister. And he's done a wonderful job, and he deserves to be praised by everyone. And there are other reasons, and I think he probably will attest to this. Part of it is because of the dedication of the Somali diaspora. And that diaspora has been so well represented here in Minneapolis. And I remember a few years ago when Assistant Secretary of State Johnny Carson came here to meet with the leaders of that particular diaspora. It was an impressive meeting. It was impressive to me, impressive to him, to hear these insights. Obviously, the Somali community has different factions. Each of them were represented in that meeting, and they're represented in various ways. Probably not everyone here voted for Abdiweli Muhammad Ali. Nonetheless, they held together around a concept that Somalia should be, once again, an independent and proud nation. I believe I was in Turkey maybe 6 months ago. The Turkish government was very proud of the fact that they had flown into Mogadishu. They provided security for the airport so that Prime Minister Erdogan could actually fly in himself. They established an embassy in Somalia. and they're providing millions of dollars of assistance to Somalia, and I've given them every praise that I can for doing that. In my view, USAID, the organization I once headed, should have a mission in Mogadishu, and perhaps we can all join together and sign a letter to Rajiv Shah and suggest that possibility, because if Turkey can be there, the United States of America ought to be there as well. So I want to thank the Prime Minister for the role he played, because I think this is something that will be studied over the years. How can such a poor and fragile state make this transition? And I want to assure you the transition, he will say the same to you tonight. The transition isn't over, obviously, and more help is needed. And we need to continue to engage the diaspora in helping the country of their birth, or the country where their descendants came from. And so part of the job we have tonight, and I want to thank all of the people who participate with the community here, in particular Mary Benasuti, who's organized our students over the years in the Chance program to participate in the community and to help people understand what it is to be here and living in this climate. And in this society, in every way, what it is to be a citizen of this country in particular. So the Humphrey School is very proud of its association with the Somali community, and we certainly were very proud that we were associated with Hussein Samatar. He's a perfect example of what it is to become a success in this society through hard work and creative thinking. So I want to turn this program now over to him, and I will excuse myself and thank you so much. Thank you, Hussein.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmah. Good evening, habeen wanaagsan. First and foremost, it's really quite an honor to you to be here, all of you, to take the time to join us tonight at this forum, at this stage, at this time. Second, we are here to listen Prime Minister Abdiweli Mohammed Ali, his experience behind the scenes of ensuring that Somalia to transition from being in transition for a long time to have a federal government. So we'll hear from him, and that will be the bulk of the program. Then we will have a Q&A. The reasons we have the chairs that you see is to have a Q&A and truly have a dialogue with you. So even the Prime Minister, we will ask him his remarks to us. He's really very succinct to talk a little bit, and then allow as much as possible this to be more of interactive than just one way. So that would be the best thing to do. But let me take a couple of people who really made it this tonight. First and foremost, I am Hussein Samatar, the founding executive director of the African Development Center. We have a beautiful building across the street, and it's an honor, Dean Edward, to know you, to work with you, but also being a neighbor of this fine institution. So if you are around, we have a beautiful Afro-Universal art gallery. We call it Afro-Universal because we believe that black folk are everywhere. We are counting everybody, whether you are from Jamaica or Colombia or Somalia or Nigeria, we're just counting you in. So we call Afro-Universal. It's a beautiful art. Come on over. We have also a sponsor of the night. The tea that you saw outside and the coffee comes from the Afro Deli and Coffee. So Abdurrahman Kahin is here. If you talk to him, he will cater, and he's an official sponsor of the event, Afro Deli and Coffee. I also want to thank the board of the African Development Center. Without them, we could not get involved, welcoming Abdiweli and also paying some of the costs. So truly appreciate the African Development Center board. Also the staff of the African Development Center. We are 10 of us, and they have been fantastic. So is any of the African Development Center staff in the house? Only Matthew over there, Stephen Ray Wilson, Yusuf Ahmed, who is in Wilmer, Minnesota, and really all the fine young women who we have who is outside, Nima Farah, Ayan Abdinur, Farida Muhammad. Truly appreciate all of them being here tonight. We asked them to be here, and they are here, and they want to also meet with Abdiweli. So we also want to thank the team that Dean Atwood said that we could not do without them. And particularly, I want to thank Qatra Abdi, who, if you could stand, please stand up, please stand up, please stand. Who really came to my office and gave me a lot of good insights of how to do things. I appreciate that. Mary Benasudi, Kaying, Professor Ryan Allen, they were a team to work with. We truly appreciate it to ensure that Abdiweli would have a good time tonight. I would also want to thank anything that really happens is that, especially since Abdiweli, this event, I've been leaving my house 5 a.m. in the morning, 5:30 sometimes, and would be doing without my wife. We want to really thank her in her absence to help in any way, form, or shape she can. I'm a father of 4 children, so I appreciate that. The other one is really that if you can turn yourselves off, we truly appreciate that. We will have a lot of people. This will be filled, so that will be very helpful. Now, let me just say that tonight you will be hearing from Abdiweli, and then, but also we have the head of the Oslo Center, my friend, came all the way from D.C., Olin Krinstad will be also speaking, and then we have Mary Benasudi who will deliver the final session. So that's really the night, what it's going to look like. But a couple of things before I let Abdiweli, Prime Minister Abdiweli, come over and take over. So first, we, the Somali American community, along with the Somali Minnesotans, I do know that we are extremely grateful as a people who have been displaced since 25 years ago to come to the state of Minnesota and a better place. We hope we have made a better place through sambusas, through teas, through training the next generation who will take over some of the work and truly becoming, to make a land of an opportunity for us and hopefully many generations to come. I can also assure you that we are learning, definitely we are learning how to ice fish. If you don't believe me, you can come in one of the Sundays, I will show you how to. So it's really through a great state. Second of it, we have been helping the state and the country of Somalia for some time, and a lot of young and talented people left from this community, one of whom here is tonight, Abdulqadir Addo. If you stand somewhere, that would be really great, who went back and to lead the country, help. Also, we had Halima who spoke last night, Halima Ibrahim. So I know there are others here who actually went back and made their contribution in a very significant way without being the Prime Minister, as we talked tonight, or the President of the country. And they all came from the state of Minnesota. We are really grateful to the state of Minnesota because we have our children, our schools, our mosques, our institutions in this great state. We have to always show our respects, but make it better for all of us. So that's about. Then as an organization, we are thrilled to be participating on this. Also, we have another organization that you will be hearing from tomorrow, who made possible with us the African Development Center along the Humphrey. It's called IHASA. IHASA has been a fantastic organization to work with, specifically Hamza Warfa, who is sitting on the backside of it. Thank you so much, Hamza, for making it happen. We're also thrilled that Faisal Roble and Fawzi Abdulqadir to come all the way. You will be hearing from them speaking tomorrow in Somali to the community. Again, there are a lot of talented people behind the scenes, one of whom is Ali Isa. We appreciate it, that made it possible, all those things that you see. I do know that we cannot call everybody out, but thank you so much. You made it Abdiweli's visit, I think, a very, hopefully, warm and welcoming in many ways. I also know that the traditional culture that you see is somebody who volunteers from the community, and Khodam, we truly appreciate it, you doing that on your own. So again, thank you so much. There are also a member of elected, or selected, should we say, or elected parliamentarian, the federal level. Mohammed Kainan is here. We truly appreciate that. Is also Abdi also here. Abdi Dahir, no, he's not, so hopefully he will be coming later or tomorrow. Also, if there are anybody either from Somaliland or Puntland who are member of the parliament that I'm not aware of, please tell us. As you know, Somalia has been one way or the other regional states, and everybody is trying their best. We need to acknowledge anybody who ensures that the country moves forward. So if you are, let me know. So now the heart of the matter of tonight is about a country that needs to transition, to really transition from a place of very difficulty for all of us. We are a country that we are from. Some of us left 1991, some 88, but those of us who left Mogadishu in 1991, there are people who went with us outside of the country who are still stuck in refugee camps in Kenya, in Ethiopia, and elsewhere. Can you imagine? That's almost 22, 23 years. And I think really that as a Somali Minnesotans, but also as a Minnesotans, there's no way and no how we can really sit idle and raise our children without moving as a human being and ensuring that to do whatever we can that either to go back to Somalia or ensuring that they leave that space for better days. So that's what we ask in Minnesotans, the United States, our government, to help us do it for ensuring that that's been very, very hard. So therefore, because of that space that we occupy for a long time as a failed state, we could have been still failed state had it not been Professor Abdiweli Muhammad Ali and groups like him to go back and willing to volunteer, which you're going to hear tonight. But let me tell you a little bit about him. Abdiweli Muhammad was born in Somalia, late 50s. After completing his high school education, he attended the Somali National University and obtained bachelor's in economics in 1984. I actually graduated, he's my alma mater, from that university in economics just 4 days before the Civil War, 1990, December 30th, began. Just 4 days. I never worked one day in Somalia. Had I worked, maybe I would have been one day prime minister, but I'm not sure now. So I left the country. So that is alma mater that he's from, but he did not stop there. He worked for the tax department of the Ministry of Finance. Some of his staff are sitting here tonight. He came to the United States to study a master's degree level at the Vanderbilt University in Nashville in 1988. And also he obtained another master's degree in public administration from Harvard University in 1999. And then he earned his PhD in economics from George Mason University in Virginia in 2000. So in 2003, Ali, since then, has been teaching economics at Niagara University in New York. He lives there with his wife and children. As you may remember, he was a minister for the Prime Minister then, Abdullahi Mohamed Farmajo, who, when he resigned, then became Abdiweli the Prime Minister of Somalia, and that was June 2011. Then when he really became, in a very visible way, was a man, along with many other women, Somalis from the diaspora, who ensured that there is a constitution that has been enables Somalia to get out of the issues that they have been dealing with. So finally, having a constitution doesn't mean a thing unless all the forces and the systems and institutions are implemented, especially effective parliament, prime minister, president, but also regional states that are very strong. We hope tonight, Abdiweli, to articulate what happened behind the scenes, but also more of a question and answers, what next for Somalia? Again, we are truly grateful and honored that you are welcoming with me our friend, our brother, Abdiweli Muhammad Ali.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good evening. Assalamu alaikum. I would like to really thank Brian Atwood for his kind remarks. I had the opportunity to meet him in 1998 when he was the able administrator of the USID in Washington, D.C. Thank you, Hussein, also for your introduction and your kind remarks. And thank you all for coming and honoring me to speak here. I'm very honored to be invited to this premier institution in this beautiful city of Minneapolis, in this beautiful state of Minnesota, a state known for its generosity and hospitality, a state that gave safety and succor to thousands of Somalis who left their country not out of their own volition, but forced to flee by conditions outside of their control. Destiny in Minnesota gave them home away from home. A good friend of mine, a Texan, used to say, the best in America come from Minnesota, the worst from Indiana. This aptly pertains to the fact that over 2,000 Somali-owned and flourishing businesses are established here since their arrival in early 1990s. Let me come back now to the topic at hand, which is titled, Ending the Transition in Somalia, a Personal Account. Ladies and gentlemen, over 20 years of devastating civil war has taken its toll on Somalia. It destroyed not only edifices and lives, but most importantly, it destroyed the social fabric of the Somali society. It has beaten neighbor against neighbor, in-laws against in-laws, uncles against uncles, and may even have sometimes changed those kind-hearted grandfathers into cold-blooded killers. We lost kinship and connections, and moreover, our love for God and country. We lost every sense of nationhood and peoplehood in Somalia. Because of this agonizing history mentioned above, my government, together with our stakeholder partners, made a commitment to end the political dilapidation that kept Somalia in a state of social, economic, and political disrepair. This moribund is commonly called transitional governance, and denied Somalis to enjoy the fruits of sovereignty, autonomy, and real independence. However, it's the Somalis who condemn themselves into this kind of dysfunctionality for the last 20-something years. They are only themselves to blame, and were finally left to their own devices to sort out this mess. You will agree that a permanent transition is an oxymoron of sorts, a contradiction in terms. A transition must have a prescribed beginning date and an end date, and the term ought to be short in duration. Not in our case. Everything in our lives has been and continue to be in a transition. Our lives were and are in transition of refugee, civil wars, human displacement, and human rights violations. Our children, those in refugee camps and those in exile, are in transitions. The largest and the most permanent of refugee camps in the world is Dadaab, a camp started as a transitional camp in 1991, and now has become a metropolitan city known entirely for its abject poverty and inhumane conditions. Our governance structures has been in flux and a state of transition for 21 years, and the government I was about to lead in June 2011 was also a transitional government. To me, my nomination and the formation of a new government represented the possibility of a new beginning, the possibility for the Somali people to say enough to transitions of the personal kind and those of governance institutions. I appeal to all Somalis and to our inner selves to put our heads together and come up with creative models of ending this transition. A society that is in endless transitions cannot plan for sustainable future, cannot have a national economic planning regime, cannot aim to provide acceptable levels of services for society, cannot aspire for a peaceful community that's at ease with itself and at peace with its neighbors. We decided to end this transition, and the means to end was clearly provided in the roadmap, an agreement that we all committed to in September 2011 in Mogadishu, the capital city of Somalia. What does this roadmap entail? Why it was necessary to end the transition? I will try to answer some of these questions and more in the remainder of this speech. The recent history of Somalia was not only marred by anarchy, lawlessness, and violence, but any respectable mode of governance became elusive because of endless political transitions. As you might all aware, as early as 2000, the Transitional Charter has mandated a number of requisite tasks to be completed within 6 years, including the drafting of a new constitution, the disarmament of militia, and the resettlement of the refugees and IDPs. By the advent of my administration in June 2001, little progress has been made on all these essential milestones. Therefore, it was necessary to draft a true roadmap for Somalia with timelines and benchmarks, a framework that will guide us through this demanding and difficult process. The timelines and the benchmarks were not just deadlines to meet and tasks completed, but were instruments that will constrain political leaders. The roadmap made us all accountable, and failure was not an option now. This was a make it or break it for all of us. The roadmap directed us to undertake the following. We must complete the Constitution in a timely fashion. We must all engage in reconciliation and political outreach. We must fashion integrity institutions that can better guide us into good governance regime that is on par with international standards. And lastly, we must secure the country from extremism and lawlessness. These were the 4 main pillars of the roadmap. We also reminded our partners that we cannot do all these things on our own and that we need assistance. As a matter of fact, when we prepared the roadmap, benchmarks, and timelines, we assumed that the international community was committed and that they will provide us with the requisite resources to implement the roadmap tasks, an assistance that at worst never came and at best was a day late and a dime short. As my government reminded them time and again, we were waiting for a genuine commitment on their part to commit the resources while we were committed to the process. We also reminded ourselves that Somali people require of us to bring forth key principles that can end this transition, principles that are process-driven, are fair, and forward-looking. We were sure that if we collectively produce some key and guiding principles on ending this ugly transition, these principles will no doubt be called the roadmap principles that ended a dreadful transition, an accolade that will forever be etched in Somali history. I'm sure that you can all attest today to the fact that transition in Somalia has ended. Somalia today enjoys a political dispensation, a new political dispensation, a new leaner and more committed parliament selected on criteria including a minimum threshold of education, no history of criminality, and a good moral compass. Today, Somalia has a new constitution based on the premises of federalism, rooted in democratic values and the bottom-up state-building approach. In each step of the roadmap process, we emphasize 3 things: the centrality of Somalis in shaping their own political future, which is being ignored and overlooked by the previous political dispensations in the previous failed reconciliation attempts. That's why we have decided all the roadmap conferences and meetings should take place inside Somalia. Number 2, the continued role of the regional and international community may be at a lower but more visible engagement, particularly political and financial support. And finally, providing the much-deserved role of women in Somalia's post-political dispensation, a specific quota for them in the parliament and in the constitution-making process. Obviously, the new constitution should be gender-neutral. However, women were the victims, but not the perpetrators of the civil strife. They were also the glue that kept Somali families together in the difficult periods of the last 20-something years. Therefore, forsaking them in the post-transition Somalia will have been unfair and unwise. The roadmap was the last-ditch effort on our part to finally create a stable, secure government in Somalia. The most important but often overlooked aspects of the roadmap was inclusivity and a wide spectrum representation of Somalis, including existing federal states such as Puntland and Galmudug, a moderate religious organization such as Ahl Sunnah wa Jama'ah, and civil society organizations. For the process to be credible and legitimate in the eyes of skeptical Somalis, it should be as inclusive as possible. It was this backdrop that we developed our national security and stabilization plan, a plan that successfully driven al-Shabaab out of most of their strongholds in southern Somalia. The plan was mostly predicated on the notion that the enemy should be pushed from the center, Mogadishu, and should be pulled from the periphery, southern and central Somalia. The plan, once successfully implemented, produced unexpected results and positive and dramatic results. By August 6, 2011, al-Shabaab began withdrawing from Mogadishu, and since then, they had lost a lot of territories to the brave Somali and African Union soldiers. Hopefully, this scourge will be completely eliminated from Somalia soon. Although the international community was always supportive of the roadmap, they were also doubtful and expressed concern on the ambitious timetable of the roadmap. The implementation of the roadmap needed commitment and conviction from Somali's political leaders, characteristics and dispensations not commonly attributed to the current crop of Somali political elites. Nevertheless, we understood that 21 years of lawlessness and anarchy was too long, and Somalis everywhere were desperate for change. Most of them really gave up on their birth country and sought security and support in other countries across borders and as far away as can be found, as far away as North America and Australia. The Somali nomads became the new Roma on the block, and now can be found in the prairies of Montana, as you know, USA, and some of them are now playing with the polar bears in the cold northwestern territories of Canada. Actually, a good friend of mine teaches accounting in Nunavut, Canada. And I don't think you know Ahmed Ismail. Somalis everywhere were sick and tired, as they say here in America, of being sick and tired. They were longing for peace to prevail in Somalia so they can one day return to their homeland and once again join their kith and kin in peaceful Somalia. To me, the status quo was untenable, and if we fail this time, we might as well say goodbye to Somalia, and this time maybe for good. As mentioned above, the four main pillars of the roadmap were securing the country from the yoke of al-Shabaab, reconciling communities, and reaching out to all the Somali stakeholders, the implementation of good governance institutions in Somalia, and finally, but more importantly, finalizing a draft constitution for Somalia, reforming the parliament, and ushering in a new era and a new political dispensation for the country by August 20, 2012. Let me say a few words on how each one of these key milestones were achieved beyond the expectations of both Somalis and the international community. On the security front, more than 75% of southern Somalia is now being liberated from al-Shabaab. Not only liberated, but also stabilized. We should be mindful of the fact that sometimes, and particularly in the case of Somalia, stabilization is more important than liberation. It's easy to liberate an area, but stabilizing it is more elusive and difficult. Our stabilization policy was a three-step approach. First, liberate the area, then stabilize it by establishing reconciliation and peace committees, and finally, establishing some modicum of administration to deliver the much-needed humanitarian and social services. The second pillar of the roadmap was reconciliation and political outreach to other Somali stakeholders. It was incumbent upon us, the federal government, to bring other Somali stakeholders on board to achieve peace and stability in Somalia. After the civil war, Somalia was fragmented into clan-based fiefdoms. Only Somalis in unison and united in purpose can reach the necessary and required political agreements that can take the country to the next level. Thus, the signatories of the roadmap included all the branches of the federal government, plus the regional states of Puntland and Galmudug, and the more moderate elements of Islamic groups in Somalia, such as Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. We also reached out to all the civil society organizations we deemed relevant for this daunting undertaking. The unity among these stakeholders allowed us to avoid unnecessary crises and finally gave us the courage to pass all the big hurdles that stymied the previous political reconciliations. The third pillar of the roadmap was the institutionalization of good governance in Somalia. The reason that Somalia is where it is today is the total collapse of all state institutions. Good institutions beget good governance, and good governance is the essence of progress and statehood. The collapse of the state institutions that could have guided this country politically, socially, and economically have left Somalia paralyzed for the last 22 years. Somalia is being called the world's foremost failed state. It consistently topped the corruption and the failed state indices. Therefore, it was necessary and important to institute some measures of effective integrity institutions. We put in place some budgetary and commitment control mechanisms so that we could be able to pay our soldiers and civil servants on time with the meager resources from the Mogadishu seaport and Mogadishu airport. We established a 9-member anti-corruption commission to fight misconduct and malfeasance and to restore the confidence that Somalis have on their government. We also proposed the establishment of a financial integrity board composed of Somalis and members of our international partners so that we will be mutually accountable to each other. This is what finally became the much-hyped Joint Financial Management Board. The JFMB is not now a mutual accountability board as we first envisioned, but a mechanism whereby only Somalis are accountable to meet financial integrity standards, while the donor community and the implementing agencies are a source of transparency and accountability. We tried our level best to practice what we really preach, but the lords of poverty in Nairobi never wanted to let their lifestyles perturbed by the progress made in Somalia. To them, the reconstruction of Somali state was a threat to their high life of the last 20 years. The last, but not the least important element of the roadmap was finalizing a draft constitution for the country, reforming the parliament, and establishing a new political arrangement for Somalia by August 2012. A new political culture was necessary if a real political change has to take place in Somalia. We brought our traditional leaders to the political process to select the members of the National Constituent Assembly who will ratify the draft constitution and will also select the members of the new parliament. Traditional leaders are considered the moral authority of the Somali society and have a natural legitimacy which the political leaders lack. They were the only legitimate authority of a clan-based society. A new federal constitution is definitely considered as an essential element to restoring trust in the new government and the subsequent post-transition political arrangements. The unveiling of this new document will have been a turning point in Somalia's political history by establishing a new constitutional footing for the new state. Since the Arta Conference of 2000, that has established the first transitional federal administration, Somalia has spent over 11 years in transitions and has failed to achieve any permanent political configurations. By the time I was appointed Prime Minister in June 2011, a constitutional making process has been underway since 2005 with a $50 million price tag on it. I never understood why 170 conventional constitutional articles could be in the making for over 6 years and could cost $50 million. Only Somalia could such waste of resources and precious time can take place, and no one will give a hoot of why and how this might be the case. By the way, the multilateral agencies and international and local NGOs without substantive change in the lives of the Somalis desperate for help. On September 19, I appointed a 9-member committee of experts to speed up the constitutional drafting process, headed by none other than the current Speaker of the Somali Parliament, Mr. Jawari. On our first meeting, I instructed them to provide me a draft constitution by the end of February. A timetable for constitution and approval of the new constitution, a timetable for consultation and approval of the new constitution was also laid out in Garowe 2, with a final draft scheduled for April 20, 2012. Finally, a draft constitution was ready on April 20, 2012, and the new constitution was finally approved by the National Constitutional Assembly on August 1st, 2012, 30% of them women. The traditional leaders selected the new parliament, leaner and more committed parliament, and were sworn in by the end of August. A new president was elected on September 10, 2012, and finally a new government and a new political dispensation was in place in Somalia. This ushers a new era and a new beginning for the country. Hopefully, this will also bring a substantive change to the moral and the material well-being of the Somali people. Thank you.
We will have about 50 minutes of Q&A, and then Orlan will come in. So again, we have plenty of time. I do know that not only Minnesotans, you are engaged going back, helping Somalia, but I really do know the state and the Somali American community and others too tonight. You have very specific and hopefully interesting questions for the Prime Minister. But before you do that, let me ask him a couple of questions to set the stage so that we can go ahead and have a dialogue, I hope a dialogue. Now, Prime Minister, if you could, as specific as you could be, and also as brief as you could be, will be very helpful. Sure. What we want to do is that first to ask you a question that really comes back to the Somali community quite a bit, and they don't understand it, I think. So if you can explain, how on earth was it possible that 4.5 to go ahead and become a reality for the country, and then thus enable the outcome for now the President, the Prime Minister, and the Parliament? So how it happened that we ended up 4.5 of clan system?
The clan system.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's a very good question. Actually, 4.5 was not in the charter, or the transitional charter. It was not in the new constitution. It's not. It was not stipulated in any document. It was just a gentleman's agreement that for somehow came from Arta. But it became, actually it gave opportunity. It gave an opportunity to some people who will not have probably get into representation. In representation in the government. But now in Garowe 2, we decided that there will be no more 4.5 after this current political dispensation. So even after 4 years, it's stipulated in Garowe principles that even after 4 years, if there will be no, because the expectation now from this government is that after 4 years, Somalis should elect their own representatives by direct democracy. So we will be able to elect our own representatives directly, not selected by traditional leaders or by proxy as we did this time. So 4 years from now, it's incumbent upon this government to really deliver that. 4 years from now, we should be able to directly elect our own representatives. So basically what that means is the next parliament should be based on constituency, not by clan. Yeah? But not by clan. So we have to understand there's a difference between clan and kinship. Okay? You can have a clan with someone in Galkayo can have a clan kinship with someone in Baidoa, a clan relationship. But he doesn't have any kinship with someone who is in Baidoa. So it should be based on constituency where people share not clan but kinship.
Absolutely.
So that they live together, society that they can elect their own representative. So even if that did not happen in 4 years, still we will not use 4.5. That was the agreement. Because we wanted to get rid of 4.5 once and for all.
Let me talk about the agreement. When you were when you were Garowe, along with the former president, Sharif Sheikh Ahmed, and also the president of Puntland State, and also the Ahl Sunnah was there, as a Garowe too. What we were reading and our understanding was really that groups such as Puntland were against 4.5. We also understood that if we want to move forward as an entity called Somalia, we have to select something, or at least come up representation. So we just want to be very clear about, is it true that at that time the former president insisted that this time, because of the issues that the southern part of the country has, and specifically around Mogadishu, the only way to move forward for political formation will be 4.5. Is that true or not?
Sure, because look, if you ask any Somali, you won't see any Somali who would advocate, even those probably that it helped. There's no single Somali that I have found who's advocating for 4.5. So everybody almost looks like that they are against 4.5. But at the time in Garowe 2, we had no any other option. There was no any other arrangement or formula that we could have agreed. So we knew it was not the best solution, but it was the, the politically pragmatic solution at the time.
Fair enough. We can move on. Second question is that you already said in your speech, and we do know that you believe in Prime Minister, that the backbone of the Somali community in Somalia, by the way, also in Minnesota, has been the women of the Somali community in business, but also now in leadership. The question, as you know, there has been extreme attack through rape the Somali women, specifically where more civil strife is around. Your government, but also this government, what can we do, but also from the people of the diaspora in the United States, as a humanitarian issue, to really stop the rape that's going through Somali women?
The reason rape probably is less prevalent today than it was maybe at the height of the Civil War. But the reason now we hear more about it is because of this proliferation of media now everywhere, the internet, the radios. And really it was a good thing because it helped to expose such behaviors, and put a light on it. So what can we do? We don't condone Somalis. They really protect their sisters, their mothers, their whatever women. I mean, it's not common. Well, we should not make it common that people rape on the streets everywhere and no one, cares about it. We don't. But those cases that happen, okay, we don't have to hide it. Those cases that happen, it has to be dealt with, and decisively. And those who do that should be brought to justice, and should face the music, basically.
As far as you are aware of, when you were the Prime Minister and the head of the government, and even now, is there any independent organizations, could be NGOs, that document the level or the gravity of rape? As you say, of course, Somalis are Muslims, and we will love to protect our mothers and sisters. But nevertheless, these issues happen. Was it any organization that could document?
Of course. Believe me, the civil society, I know in Mogadishu, the civil society organizations for Somalia in Mogadishu are very strong. And they really have, the women there are very strong, and they advocate, and they talk, and they discuss, and they demand. So I'm very proud that we have those, and I'm sure the same thing is taking place also in other parts of the country. So it is really women that really now are, demanding that something should be done about it.
Absolutely. Finally, before I go to the public and ask the questions, the final question, this is personal. As you know that we all agree that you have been a very effective Prime Minister, but also you have thrown your hat into be the President of the country.
Yes.
And obviously, you're never going to win if you don't lose some, and you lost.
Sure.
And now the question I'm asking is really that in the tradition of the last 20 years and 30 years, maybe 50, when people lose, they become opposition. So are you becoming opposition, or you will be supporting the government?
No, absolutely not. It is. We have a new government. Both the president and the prime minister are good friends of mine, and the reason what we did, ending the roadmap, implementing the roadmap, ending the transition, is this is the byproduct of my effort and our effort.
That's right.
And so why should we do that? We should support them. We should pray for them. Sometimes when they deviate, we have to, talk to them wisely and privately. So,
and privately, we hope. All right. We have to take a lot of questions. Yes. And there's a microphone coming. Mary Beresuri will have the microphone. If you just stand up, she will definitely please stand up, and she will give it to you. You can sit, but just get the microphone.
If there is a mic, I don't think I need to stand up.
No, you don't have to. Just get the microphone.
Yes. Thank you very much, Abdiweli, for such a candid, really, and informative speech. I want to take you out of the Somalis a bit, and I'm interested in the ghost lords and the international development, post-structural adjustment reality.
Sure.
Somalia is now, in addition to whatever it is that we need to deal with internally, Somalia has become a poster child for the capacity building industry, if you will. And there is a big project, Make Work, reality that really and truly needs to be dealt with. So in challenging our international stakeholders, in challenging the international community that needs to sort of help Somalia while allowing Somalia the space to deal with Somalis to deal with one another. How do you see we are in also, as a public policy analyst, we're in a very neoliberal era where public sector is by and large being squeezed and public institutions are being undermined. So in that context,
Sure.
with the context of Somalis have been in war for 20 years, therefore they need capacity. How do we unclench and dig Somali public institutions out of the clutches of this industry that is just perpetually making work here?
Thank you so much. Before you answer, if you just tell your name and again, and who you are, all of you would be appreciated.
Sorry, Fawzia Abdul Qadir, public policy analyst from Ottawa, Canada. Thank you.
As I said in my speech, Somalia is where it's today because of the total collapse of state institutions. Now, to really bring this country back, we have to build state institutions. Now, the international community or donors, they're sincere about it. They, especially developed countries, they try to provide help to the needy Somalis. But most of those money is channeled not through government institutions or state institutions, but through international and local NGOs. So there's a huge growth industry in that sector, international and local NGOs. So it became very difficult. They became a substitute for state institutions. And then it created this entrenched interest group that have no desire for state institutions to be strong. Now, when you talk to the international community, they will tell you, oh, we cannot give you money, we cannot provide you money, you're corrupt, so that, you know. So as I said in my speech, it was very difficult. It was a challenge. As I told you, every year, if you talk to them, they will tell you how much you spent in Somalia this past year. They will tell you $1 billion. $1 billion. And you don't see one hospital built, one school built, one road constructed. So where does all this money go? And as you see, it's capacity building, you know, zipping in, somebody zipping out with lavish, you know, air, you know. So this is what Somalia was for the last 20-something years. And it's still very difficult to get that out of that. So my probably suggestion will have been, because in my government, we were more interested or more involved and spent too much time on implementing the roadmap. So institution building was a priority, but at the same time, we don't have the resources and we didn't have the opportunity to really do something good about it. So I think the best thing is what I call cold turkey. It's stop money and NGOs, international NGOs coming to Somalia and doing this kind of work. For example, I really appreciate the way, for example, the Turks are doing in Somalia. For example, with less than, I think the budget, the money raised for Somalia by the Turkish government was $350 million. They haven't spent more than 10% of that money. And they are already making a difference in Somalia, huge difference. Building schools, hospitals, roads, all kind of work. Providing thousands or hundreds of scholarships to Somali students. This is what we need. You know, the donor community, remember, Sir Peter Power, a development economist, once said, a foreign aid is a transfer from poor taxpayers in developed countries to rich bureaucrats in developing countries. but in this case, it is not the rich bureaucrats, it is the warlords, I must say, the lords of poverty in Nairobi who's getting all the money. I wish some of you have read the book, The Lords of Poverty by Graham Hancock.
Yeah.
Somalia is a good example of the Lords of Poverty. Really, that's what it is. So,
Prime Minister, if I could follow up, Fauzi asked a fantastic question. If you were advising the current government, the President, the Prime Minister, and the Parliament, and we know that Nairobi is a hub of all the international community, and that's where the money is at, what can they do effectively to change that dialogue so Somalia can see some of the investment?
Yeah, I mean, now we have a permanent government. We have now they have more say than before. So they have to demand. I mean, it has to. If this money is from poor taxpayers in developed countries like the U.S. to poor Somalis in Somalia, there should be nobody in between. It has to go from here. It has to go there. And they have to demand that.
Sure. And how you overcome the perception of that the country is corrupt and doesn't have the institutions, although capacity building
of course, you have to do this in tandem with building integrity institutions so that even the international community should feel comfortable that their money is not stolen, that their money is not diverted, that they are, we have to make that. So that's why we started the Financial Integrity Board. Now the new government, I think, is implementing it.
Yeah.
So,
And I understand also Norway is helping it. So I will take a couple of questions. If we can stay with the young women, it would be fantastic. So let's do that.
Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum
Ilhan. Ilhan, earlier you said in your speech, you spoke of, and Hussein did as well, what is happening in Dadaab and how it started as a transitional refugee camp, and now it's just become a city. You know, being there, you don't even realize that it is
it's
a camp.
The fifth largest city.
Yeah. And so, and I guess my question is, when the famine was happening in 2011, summer of 2011, right around the time when you came into office, there were a lot of hype surrounding the refugees that were coming into Mogadishu. And there was a lot of visits in those camps that were being established in Mogadishu by a lot of officials. But there was no one going to areas like Dadaab, in makeshift refugee camps inside of Somalia, like Doble. Can you speak to why that might be, why they are not considered diaspora, why they're not, their voice doesn't really matter most of the times? Because we get a lot of visitors here in Minnesota, especially in Minneapolis, and I know a lot of the other diasporas get a lot of it. It's not that we need or we don't want your visit. It's good to get a visit, but I think they would appreciate it too and feel like they count. So what has been the barrier for officials visiting there?
No. I think, as Sue really said, it was a missed opportunity for me and others to really visit Dadaab. And I went many times to visit, but always something else comes up, and I didn't get the opportunity to visit. But the reason the focus was the new displaced people by the drought, the new people affected by the drought. So these camps are already established camps. So they have NGOs, they have, so we have to prioritize with the meager resources we had. For example, when at the height of the drought, it was June when I came, July, August, and these are the times that we have the monsoon seasons, and we don't get any money from no ships or come to Mogadishu port. So we were a staff of funds, and we have even difficult dealing with those who are coming to Mogadishu and in some other areas under the control of the government. So we were attending to the needs of those, immediate needs of those who just been affected by the drought. But the people in the refugee camps, of course, they have problems, and they live in abject poverty and need the attention of not only Somalis but also the international community. But the priority was to take care of these new people.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you, Ilhan. Jibril, just if you tell Mary.
I'll be brief. My name is Jibril. Mr. Former Prime Minister, it's an honor to meet you. You and I go way back.
Sure.
I move on to Somalia.
MoveOn.org.
MoveOn.org. My question is, can you take us, if you put aside your accomplishments over that short period, if you just put aside everything, the roadmap, everything, the day that's still stuck on my mind is the election day.
Sure.
That couldn't have happened. This had happened on your watch. And can we give a hand to the Prime Minister? Please, a hand applause. It's unclear. Can you take us back to what was behind the scene on that day? Specifically, we've seen a picture of you and some other folks that were talking about strategies and here and there. Can you just take us back and talk about that day, please?
I think that day was a culmination of all the things that happened for the last year or so. So it was the conclusion of that journey. Of course, there were things going behind the scenes, but obviously, we all wanted a change. We all wanted to end that transition, dreadful transition, and elect a new president. And of course, there was issues about, for example, the warlords, what we call the warlords. But there are people who were not really warlords, but because we had the technical, what we call technical selection committee, chaired by Halimo and Professor Hiri, and they were independent of us. Okay? So we couldn't even have no influence on them. And so what happened was, for their own criteria, they considered some people as warlords. But some of them were not, obviously, we know it. Some of them were not warlords. But whatever criteria that they have chosen, some of these people were considered as warlords. And then the question is, what should we do? Some of them are, some of them are not. Me as a prime minister, I have to respect the decisions of the technical selection committee. That's their job. But some other people were not doing that. They somehow see their scot-free on personal interest. Some of these people should be included in the new parliamentarians. So there were things like that, issues about the warlords, what do you do about it? And but in the end, we voted, and we voted for a new president, and I supported that.
Thank you so much. All right. So just put your hands up so I can go all the way. Let me take side. Mary, if there's, I just love to talk Mary all the time, I guess. So if you can come.
So thank you, Dr. Ali. I'll take away the politics of Somalia. I want to ask you, I'm interested about books. It's my profession, books. So you're writing a book, as
Yes,
my resource telling me.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about what you are writing about? I know maybe it's your experience. And thank you.
Sure. I have a book project, and it's nothing more than the year or so that I was there, and even before that, and at least try to share my experience with Somali people, those who read, and so that they, and for posterity, for others to, what we have done wrong and what we think we have done right, and what I think the future for Somalia should be, and things like that. So it's just my experience while I was in Somalia.
As we remember you, Prime Minister, you were fond of deadlines.
Sure.
And things getting done. When would the book be out?
You know, when I applied the deadlines to myself, I would be very generous.
Of course. Yeah, you should be. So we'll have soon enough. Soon enough. All right. We have a plenty of time. Believe me, we'll all have the opportunity to do so. All right, Zainab, I will definitely, if any lady goes up, it will be first. So we'll definitely get to you, all of you. Don't worry. Yeah, Zainab. And short answers will help.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Minnesota, Abdiweli. Zainab Hassan. Actually, we first met in Nashville,
Sure.
Tennessee, so we go way
Long
back.
time ago.
A long time ago. Couple of questions. One is we know that there was a 30% quota for women, which has not been achieved or even close. As far as I know, it has been like 14%. Or 15, 14% that has
17%.
17 now. Okay, that has became members. So what happened to that? Two, as we know, you alluded. I mean, basically that this current new government should basically have elections in 4 years. How realistic is that? Considering that there are no actually institutions, and Somalia did not have any, basically, political parties in more than 40 years. We only saw new political, actually, parties in less than a year ago when, or about a year ago, when a lot of people were considering running for presidency. So do you think that could be achieved? Realistically, so that's my couple of questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Zainab. It's a pleasure for you to be here with me. We in Grower 1, we said we should have at least minimum of 20% for women, minimum. Then women in Somalia are very feisty, and they're not easy group to deal with. So they came and they said we need 30% minimum. They demanded that. And we said, okay, we're going to have 30%. But then the problem was, we have traditional leaders. Traditional leaders in a very male chauvinist society. 100%. So it was very difficult really for them to convince them to select women. It was difficult, very hard. I remember calling Halima every night and asking them, where are we in the Cobra? Fighting for women in the end doesn't help me. In the election, they didn't vote for me. But I used to call them, Halima, in the night and ask them, where is the quota? Today is 10%, 8%, 11%, But the problem was, we could have pushed more. But the problem was the time, controlling these traditional leaders, talking to them, going back forth on them. And some of them were telling me, are you telling me to select, to convince them to really do so? But then the time constraint. Okay, we have to end this by this deadline. So if we had a little bit more time, probably we could have reached more. But in the end, we have what we have, which is around 17%. But be mindful of the fact that the average in the region is 12%. East African region is 12%. So having 17% is a good thing for a need. I remember when I came here in the U.S. in the 1980s, they had only one senator out of the 100. Remember, Nancy Kassenbaum of Kansas was the only. And probably she was there because of her father out of London. So we're there, we're going to push there. But I, as always, tell them, they have to demand from their husbands, they have to demand from their brothers, they have to demand from their traditional leaders, And even if the traditional leaders don't accept that, I used to tell them, you should now, have your own traditional leaders, women traditional leaders.
And that's the way. Prime Minister, the second question was that how realistic is the country will be ready in 4 years?
In 4 years.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's good.
It takes too long. 4 years. 4 years is a long time. Really. What they need probably is a new roadmap to really, you can reach there. Now, 75% of the South is, actually, I can say 90% of the major towns in the South is now free of Al-Shabaab. So once you have that stability in the South, and you stabilize and have administrations, the next step is to build administrations, the regional administrations, the federal states. Once you have that, then the rest is to get the census, and so if you have that, maybe we cannot make it, but we should be able to at least be close to that, and we have to demand that. In 4 years, we should have one person, one vote.
Thank you very much. All right, Faisal, let me take it.
Faisal Roble from Los Angeles, and for disclosure, a good friend of the Prime Minister, and indeed a supporter. As a matter of fact, I like to comment on the last answer that you responded to my friend Zainab, which is what made me support Abdiweli and his team, in the sense that I was a very critique of the roadmap because of many reasons. But once I realized several things. One, the main objective, the overarching objective of the roadmap, which was again his theme earlier, to end this current transition and get somewhere. That was the objective. And then differences that they brought into the office from the previous administration, which was a very technical approach, technical scientific approach to this issue. Benchmarks, timeline, and I repeated this in many of my writings and somewhere else, that a work is doable if it has timeline, and benchmarks,
And commitment
which
too.
gives you a commitment, which gives you a chance to come back and assess. Having said that, I think I will ask a very piercing question,
Sure.
which is probably one of the crux of our problem is the question of Somaliland.
Okay.
The recently adopted federal constitution worked out by multi-interested groups and stakeholders.
Sure.
Except what Somaliland calls the detractors and individual elements who do not represent Somaliland per se, the stakeholder of what could have been a real stakeholder is the Somaliland regional government, as Puntland was, Galmudug was, Hibin and Heb was. So in that view, and Somaliland is still standing where it is really the do we see something, at the end of the tunnel?
Sure.
Do we have a formula to bring Somalia, with all the issues of Khartoum being a problem, now Borama jumping into the furnace? Has there been discussions around and say if Somaliland doesn't come back, what is,
Sure.
I just want to hear your
If you just give the microphone, yeah.
There's something called, I think, contractarian approach of government, whereby we define government as a social contract between individuals. So somehow Somaliland feels that the contract that they had with the South has been violated. So therefore now they have the right to secede. That's the argument. We cannot bring Somaliland by force to Somalia. We can't. So therefore, it's incumbent upon us Somalis to really convince them that Somaliland will be better off being with us than being separate from us. It's on the south, southern Somalis. We have to convince them that they are better off being with us than being separate from us. And that's why we have started the dialogue that we had with them in my government. The first meeting has taken place in London. It was not a real substantive meeting. It was breaking the ice. There was other behind-the-scene meetings between us and Somaliland, but that was the one which was public, and it was what we call the talk of the talks. Just let's start, at least talking to each other. So I'm very hopeful that they will be convinced that unity and being Somalis together is the way forward. So that we have a lot of convincing to do, and hopefully we will reach that goal.
Let me. Okay, we'll definitely come back. Prime Minister, as you know, this is public institution and also a higher learning, which we have to be real and talk openly the issues.
Sure.
Somaliland is very hard. All Somalia is very difficult, complex. But within Somaliland itself, there are people who are unionists and people who are not.
Sure.
And when the dialogue is happening, who are you having dialogue with? And it's the question. So we could make sure this process moves forward.
Look, when you have those Somali, we know, the counter argument to Somaliland is, if you want to secede from Somalia, then you should allow others also who wanted to secede from you and join Somalia. That's a counter argument too. It's not that we're not saying that. We said that. So you're not having the dialogue with those who already want to be with you and be with Somalis. You're trying to convince those who wanted to secede from you to also bring them on board. That's the job that you have to do.
And finally, I will come to Faisal, but also another reality is really that people who have been working hard for the last 20 years to truly say that we are Somali unionist, we are Somali Midnimo, and clearly felt this time, although you're not part of it, appointing a foreign minister who actually was coming from Somaliland. So that's not your issue, but what I'm highlighting is really the difficulty of having an open dialogue where Somalis can come together. Maybe you may say, oh, thank God I lost. We're not going to say that. But it's really going to be tough when you're talking to unionists who are actually giving a blood to date to see the Somali to stay together, and how that dialogue is going to move forward.
But what's wrong with, okay, those who are with you and who are joining you and in favor of unity, you are in the same boat, you are on the same page, you are together. But what's wrong with trying to convince others?
Absolutely.
To
absolutely.
Them on board.
Absolutely. Prime Minister, the argument will be there's nothing wrong with it, but you can never forget every group has their own self-interest. When they don't see themselves, it really defeats the whole point of being part of Somali. But that's an argument another day.
Sure.
Faisal.
No, my message was, I think, Abdiweli has shown us that he really has the stamina and the patience to be the new generation of Somalia's political leaders, because sometimes you need, as he said, to conduct conversation behind the scene and reserve some of the comments that you would have had. And I know he's reserving a lot of comments. But I don't want him to disappear in the oblivion, because premiership gives you the chance to also engage constructively the government that you work with. So are you gonna, because at the end of the day you have constituents. You have really very wide constituents. So should we expect Abdiweli, who talks to his friend, the President Hassan Sheikh, in private at times, but at the same time use his name to promote some of the social agendas, including the women's issue, some of the, because Somalia still masks some serious centuries-old social stigma and oppression and suppression. So are you gonna step up to the and be our leader?
Thank you, Faisal. What's next for Abdiweli is the question, one way or the other.
Of course, now we have a president, we have a prime minister, and the prime minister is a great friend of mine. We grew up together, actually we were neighbors. So I will try to dispense my advice as much as I can, and also to the president. But now I will also give them their space. I don't want to. That social role is for me working on education, health, peace and security and development. Those things that I can at least try to help, I will try to contribute. But at the same time, these new political leaders, we have to give them also their space so that they can conduct their own policy and their own political programs and agendas.
Maybe we need to wait and read in your book. What's next? I will come this side. I never took from that side. Doesn't make sense. Yes, Aman.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Aman Obsia. I'm a law student here, and I'm also a graduate student at the Humphrey School. I have two questions. First question is about the new social contract, which is federalism. Right now it says that it has to be 2 regions, 2 provinces to be a state. Is there any background behind that? Is there a science, a formula behind why it has to be 2 regions and not 1 region? And the second question is, theme of your prime ministership and the theme of when you were speaking today is bringing sovereignty back to Somalia, in essence, bringing the statehood back to Somalia. And you're a fan of benchmarks and things of this nature. Without a proper Somali security apparatus, we will not have our sovereignty back fully. The state will not return without a proper security apparatus. So the Somali army should be protecting the Somali government in the territory, and the Somali police should be protecting the Somali civilians. Right now, we've exported or outsourced our security to AMNISOM. Do you foresee benchmarks for when they would be able to leave and when the Somali people will be able to take security into their own hands?
Very good. The first one is these 2 regions and more can make a federal state. We're in the transitional charter. Actually, when we were writing the new constitution, I advocated, and others advocated, to make it 3 regions or more. The reason being, the perception, some people's perceptions is that federalism, they translate that into regionalism and clanism. Okay? But we want the federal states to not have a clan character. Eh? Not have clan character. So the more regions you have, the less clan characters that the federal states will have. But in the end, there are different interest groups, and they, outvote you, and we ended up again that 2 or more states, because every community, they have their own federal state.
Absolutely.
That's why now we have Somalia. The last time, 1990, we had 18 regions. Now, but now we have more than 30 presidents. The president of this state, the president of that state. So every community, they want to have their own federal state. So that's why we have these 2 regions and more. But still, 3 or more will have been much better in terms of
For the Somali army.
for the Somali.
Now the Somali army.
That's one army. Look, we have really a brilliant document called NSSP, National Security and Stabilization Plan. It was an input of former Somali military, leaders. There were also input from the international community, from strategic planners and all that. It's a very good document. My cabinet ministers, they have passed it when I was there. It should have been submitted to the Somali parliament to change into law. But remember, we had an issue, parliamentary issue, and the parliament was 2 factions and was difficult to do so. So we have the document. Basically, only Somalis can secure Somalia. Only Somalis can defend Somalia. We cannot rely on AMISOM forever. They can only be with us for so long. So therefore, we should have a robust Somali national army. Not huge, the one that we had before the collapse of the state, but really robust Somali national army, Somali national police force. Most of the police force will be regional police force, basically, but should have also national police force, and also other security institutions should be built. And that's the priority for us. And it's a priority, I'm sure, for this new government. And there are also other governments that are trying to help us in terms of training, logistics, and support, including the US, Italy, Turkey, and others.
Prime Minister, let me follow up.
So hopefully we're going to have...
The president actually came over here, and he has been very clear about the security and the army. And he's very clear about that. But as you know, for a fact, almost all the army we have is from AU, Uganda, Burundi.
Not all the army. We have our... There's also some...
let me go there. And that's where I'm going to go next. The credit is this, that even the system we have now, that the army is, to date, is still divided among clan lines and militia. So my question really would be, a country that struggles with still the Somali being a Somaliism, how specifically do you think this government now can transition in the army where clan is not really the benchmark, but the professional aspect? What can they do?
No, you have to. You cannot have militia. We already started that. In my government, we started that. We have to really change. Militia army cannot be a Somali national army. It has to change. It has to have a national character. It has to be, but we're not there yet. We will be, it takes time. It takes time. We have to give them time, and they will sort of, and even now, they are brave soldiers.
Of course.
They are working hard. They are giving the ultimate price. Sometimes they're not paid. And even when they pay, their salary is $100 a month. Imagine someone who is sacrificing the ultimate, price for $100. He's not doing it for the money. He's doing it because he loves his country, and that's why they're doing it. And we have to praise them, and we have to really thank them for the sacrifice that they had made. But ultimately, of course, yes. Now, of course, that was the country. The country was fragmented into clan fiefdoms. So what are you going to have? You're going to have a clan. You're going to have a militia. But then you have to change that, and that's the program that we have, the NSSP. It will be a Somali national army. It should have a national character. It should not be on clan.
So the Prime Minister and the President, they're working on that.
Of course, they have the document.
Okay, let me take one more, and then we'll come Abdi. Yes, Mohammed.
Mr. Prime Minister, good afternoon. Still, what's bothering me is the international NGOs who
Can you tell us who you are a little bit? Sorry.
Mohammed Mahmoud, now the Executive Director of Somali American Parents Association. What bothers me much is still the international NGOs. And I was away for a while, and I'm not sure whether I have the right information or not. The recipe of those international organizations, which makes it eatable, is the local NGOs in the country. Do you see that is a problem or a blocking stone for bringing those NGOs inside? And my other question is...
So you want the international NGOs to come to Mogadishu, to Somalia, basically?
No, what I want is to get some people to have accountable to say that what you are giving us. This money, part of the money is ours. We pay tax.
So the question would be?
Will be how we can fight with those, also with those NGOs inside, in order not to facilitate for them to take their money.
Thank you. Thank you, Mohammed.
A good question, Mohammed. The local NGOs and the national NGO, they work together. They are one group, they are one interest group, they are one entity. So if you try to separate the locals from the international, you cannot do so. Because the locals, they get money from the international NGOs. So, but basically, no, we have to really also be thankful to them, because a lot of Somali NGOs, international NGOs, have done a lot of marvelous job in Somalia. They were the ones who were, funding schools, hospitals, and things like that. And so the civil society organizations in Somalia have done a good job in doing that. So all their work was not in vain. But basically, the amount of money, of resources that's given in the name of Somalia, but when you see the results on the ground, it doesn't match. It's not compatible. So that's where the argument is that we have to make sure.
We're getting kind of low on time, so I would really hope that if you have a new question, definitely we'll try to be as quick as you can. Let's take 3 of them all together, and then Abdirashid, if you go, and if you could really specific and brief, because it would be great. Yeah.
Abdiweli, thanks very much for giving us that wonderful speech. My question actually is also along the same lines on international organizations. One way that we can actually deal with them is to come up with alternative vision by the government of Somalia, whether that vision is on health, education, you name it. So when you were in government, did you ever come up with an alternative vision that you can peacefully and politely challenge with these organizations who are based in Kenya? And I have no idea whether you have some information or not with the current government. If you were not able to come up with that sort of vision, do you think they have that vision in the pipeline?
Who you are? Why don't you tell who you are?
Oh, sorry, and I'm from Abdirashid Shira from Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Abdirashid. The issue, we highlighted the issue. And believe me, before I became Prime Minister or joined the government, some of these people were my friends. But when I found out what's going on and how Somalis are dealt with, it really is gut-wrenching, basically, what's going on, and the behavior of some of those institutions or NGOs, whether they're international or local. So there was always a discussion going on. I was talking to these are implementing agencies. The money comes from either from some UN agencies or from the donor community themselves, the countries. And the countries, they have, the intentions are very good. They want Somalis to be helped, whether it's humanitarian or development or social services. But what's lacking was the accountability aspect of it. So I was talking to the donor community and asking them, this is your money. Do you really want to make sure that this money goes to the intended recipients. Okay, so what you have to do as a government, I think, is to have a direct dialogue with the donor community themselves, so that they can change the way their money is spent.
I know a couple of things. Wait, couple of things that I know that we will always come short, and there are a lot of people who would love to ask questions, which is absolutely appropriate. But I would love to ask Humphrey, how long can we stay over before we really call it home? Because it's almost the time that I needed to take charge, but I want to make sure that I'm respectful. There are maybe 2-3 questions if we can take. That's okay.
I think we're okay if we, for 5 or 10 more.
Put 1 minute, okay. Now, what I would really say is really that there will be, just listen, there will be reception after this at the Minneapolis Club downtown. You can definitely come on our dime, eat with us, and ask all the private questions that you want the Prime Minister. He has been extremely accessible, and hopefully you realize that I wasn't asking him easy questions, and he's always up to it. So what I will do is really that take 2 questions randomly. And I hope you will forgive me not really having the opportunity to give you time, all of you. So now, you have been on me all the time. Why don't you? Let's ask you a question.
Yeah, Mr. Prime Minister, I think I don't need the mic. Okay, then the mic is here. I don't want to. Okay, my question, Mr. Prime Minister, is I'm concerned about press freedom in your country. On the day when...
Who are you?
Oh, sorry. My name is Issa Mansari. I'm the editor of the Africa paper and director of the Africa Institute for International Reporting.
And originally you are from what country?
Originally, I'm from Sierra Leone for many years.
We just need to connect connections.
So, yeah. So my question here is I'm concerned about press freedom in your country. On the day when the president was here, journalist was gunned down that same day while going to his office right in Mogadishu. For the past few years, when we monitor press freedom, it has been the same. The rate of journalists killed in Somalia has been very high in Africa, second to Iraq. What did you do in terms of protecting journalists while you were Prime Minister?
Sure.
And what are the mechanisms right there in the country currently in order to help protect journalists? Many of them are in refugee camps for 20 years. And the other question is, what are you going to do to solve this problem? Because if Somalia is really to clean up its image, need journalists in the country. And if they are being gunned down, how are you going to guarantee
Thank you so much.
to go down to your country?
Fantastic question. So what we're going to do is that he will answer what he has done, what the future, let this government deal with it.
Sure. You know, the journalists in Somalia, these are kids, young generations, who are not school in journalism, but they just get the mic and they really do the job. And sometimes they really do fantastic jobs. Mm-hmm. And in Mogadishu, really, I thought, I wish some of you should have been there and listened to Radio Shabelle and Radio Kulmiye and listen to what they say about me or the president or, you know, so it was very good. We allowed them to have a real dialogue and freedom of speech. We did that. The question is personal safety. It's very difficult to do it. They are part of the population. They don't live in a separate areas that you can really protect them. But, you know, this is what we call the systematic risk. There are 2 types of risk. I know some of you know it. One is a systematic risk, and one is an idiosyncratic risk. And they face in both. The systematic risk is the risk that every person faces in Somalia because of the situation that Somalia is not a secure place. But also they face this unique risk, which is an idiosyncratic risk from the Shabab, because they are journalists, and they don't have real protection. So it's a very difficult issue to deal with. And we thought about it, we talked about it many times.
What have you, Prime Minister, as a government, when you had only a short period of time, what have you tried that specifically that you were able to hopefully
really, to be honest with you, we haven't done really much in protecting the lives of these journalists. because of the situation that we are in.
Of course.
They are part of the population. When they do their job, they go back to their homes and to their families. So, these are people with families, with some of them with kids.
Of course.
And
it's an open society. Last question, Abdullahi. We're going to give it to you. You have the opportunity. And be brief, please. Thank you.
My name is Abdiweli Adan. Abdullahi Muhammad Adan. Thank you for Hussein Samatar for giving me this opportunity. Abdiweli, I admire you, and we have to give him applaud because he is almost losing his life. Abdiweli, I want to ask you one quick question, and I know a lot of people share with me this. Since you have been in Prime Minister in Somalia and you had worked with, what's his name, President Sharif, yes. So, and tell me about your own experience working with him. And is there any issue that you had it? If you had it, what was it? And tell me about, like, all the time when we are appointed Prime Minister, it has an issue with the President. Is there any clarification, what they will do as responsible, and what lesson can we learn? The second thing I want to ask a question.
That's a beautiful question.
And I need to ask.
I think that would be it. You got to have it.
Yeah, Abdiweli, I know I'm from Lower Juba. Kismayo has become an issue for the government over other regions. What do you think the government is doing right now? Is it the right way to approach the way they are describing? Why is it so tension about it?
Thank you, Abdullahi. I think we get it.
Okay. My relationship, I had a good relationship with the President Sheikh Sharif. And if we don't work together, we should not have succeeded.
Of course.
So it was not only me and the President has to work together, I have to work also with the Speaker of the Parliament. We have to also work with the, you can imagine how challenging it was,
of course,
to do the legwork of bringing all these people together. We have to work with President Faroli of Puntland, we have to work with Alin, we have to work with Atluna with Jama'a, we have to work with civil society organizations, which are not easy, difficult people in Somalia. So we have to bring all this together. So if you have a fight with the president all the time, then you cannot, so you have to compromise, you have to, sometimes, of course, you can have difference of opinions and issues. But I'm very grateful that he appointed me Prime Minister, and also that really we work together to end this transition. And he was genuine, and he was really supportive in that issue. Maybe we have sometimes different opinions what we on our daily work and activity, but
that's the beauty of it.
Yeah,
Prime Minister, about Jubaland and how.
Jubaland.
Yep,
I think the issue of Jubaland, Somalia, we opted for a federal system. That's no question about it. We have federal. This government is called the Federal Government of Somalia. The transition is not there. So, but there are issues. What role will the government? I work very hard with the issue of federalism and the states and what have you. So, their questions is what's the role of the government in terms of the local people should elect their own local representatives. That's democracy in the works. But the question is, what role? That the central government has to have a role. They have the guidance role. They have to put the big picture and the policy of the country. They are responsible for the country, so they have that role to support, to guide the process, and so on and so forth.
I think that's a clear of an answer.
Yeah.
And just to finally, Prime Minister, that will be the last question about just you went for the federal. You're right, this is a federal system. Now the President of the Somalia, Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, articulated that he has to deal with this issue.
Sure.
But the counter-argument is just that, absolutely, I think we will go, I don't know or not. But the counter-argument has been really that people who would say we don't really understand it, we don't have the systems, we don't have the laws of it. What can specifically be done so people can deal with this? But also, when they look some regional states as of now, that may not be attractive enough. So how can, my question is, in a very succinct way, explain how this federal can work, quickly?
This is a very complex issue. I'll be a little bit more time. Look, federalism conceptually, I believe, is a good system, like what you have in the US. What's federalism all about? Okay? I was having a small group discussion today, and if you want the goodness of federalism, all of you read the Federalist Papers of Madison, Hamilton, and John Jay. And what do they talk about? It's simply to protect the sovereignty of the individual, whether it's a Somali individual or an American individual. And how you do that? To separate the power of the state. Okay? Horizontally, where you have the judiciary, legislative, and the executive branch of the government. But also, the power of the state should also be vertically divided. So you have the federal, state, and the local. And why you do that? Because you want to use the power of the state, the military power of the state, to abuse the sovereignty of the Somali individual, the sovereignty of the American individual. That's the goodness of federalism. Now, if people think federalism is clanism and regionalism, they're wrong. If they think that you want to separate or you want to have a separation from the center, from the capital city, from the center, and then you have your own centralized state in your federal region, then that's also wrong. And that's what some people have in mind. So you want to separate, you want to have federal state, but then when it comes to your state, it's a highly centralized state.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We will leave it there. Thank you. Last, the Prime Minister. Now, we have a couple of things left. We do have our own friend, Orlin, to come in, and so you will bowl yours. Wait a minute, we are not done yet.
Well, thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Appreciate that we call each other friend. We've become very good friends over the last 4 years. And I look out in the audience here, and I see so many friends in this community. We've had dinners at our home. We've had iftar at our home. And we even had some Somali friends for Christmas dinner this year. And so it's been a very warm and enriching experience to work with so many of you this past 4 years. Hussein mentioned Qadra Abdi, who was a program associate with us, and I'm not surprised at all that she's been so involved in this event. And Aman Obsia, also a program associate working with us, and we really enjoyed having you with us here. It was great seeing Brian Atwood. When we established the Oslo Center U.S. Foundation 4 years ago, he was one of our first advisory board members. And Zainab Hassan here is one of our board members. So, and I think Tom Hansen is out there in the audience somewhere also, and he is one of our board members as well. So, dear Dr. Ali and friends, I'm deeply honored to be here this evening to congratulate Prime Minister Abdiweli Muhammad Ali and to address this audience. I greatly appreciate the honor of passing on comments from Prime Minister Kjell Magne Bondevik and his staff at the Oslo Center in Norway. The Oslo Center for Peace and Human Rights has been engaged in Somalia since 2006, when former Prime Minister Bondevik played a dual role as president of the Oslo Center and also as the UN Secretary General's Special Humanitarian Envoy to the Horn of Africa. The Oslo Center U.S. Foundation has played a supporting role to the Oslo Center in Norway since 2008, when we first began a program of support that we called Dialogue for Peace, Bridging the Diaspora, and primarily between Minnesota and Norway. Later, it became called the Rebuilding Somalia, the Role of the Diaspora, and it wasn't the only one, but certainly the most important of our Oslo Center U.S. Foundation support projects. My remarks tonight are actually a composite direct from conversations with Prime Minister Bondevik and his staff, and my good friend Mr. Bjarte Toro, who spends a lot of time in Somalia and in Kenya, and from conversations at the State Department earlier today. The success of former Prime Minister Dr. Abdiweli Muhammad Ali is obvious.